This is for everyone who's tired of me putting up really shitty, no resolution videos. Who's been really patient. Because my camera's just been wearing down, so the front camera doesn't really work very well. And but it's very low res, so it allows me to shoot more video during the day because my days are 6 to 8, 10 hours long, and I might get I'll get more video than I can get. The battery will run out basically before I get enough video, but so this is me in high resolution. Now you know what you're talking about. Now you see the man. Welcome to my channel. I'm very, very colorful, and I'm very smart and wise. And I say all kinds of wonderful things all in a row. You'll see. You'll see. That's basically what I do. I try to say really cool, angry, enlightening, disturbing, very honest things all in a row. Like dippity dippity doo. Um, no, I mean, there are people who just practice their opinion. That's not original to me. Like if you spend enough time sharing your opinion with people or yourself, or you gather over the years enough opinions about things, and there are people who don't really have very many opinions on things, which is very fucking weird to me. But I don't know where to put this fucking camera now. Fuck you, everyone, for fucking making me go on high fucking resolution, you motherfucker. The only one who could ever touch me was the son of a preacher man. The only one who could ever love me was the son of a preacher man. All right, Samsung, I got you. The Song of Sam. I'm sure that's a metaphysical word. Sam means son. Mass is in Christmas. Sung is hung really well, like a gnu. Gary Gnu. I'm hung like Gary Gnu, motherfucker. Look it up. What the fuck is a GNU? Great Space Coasters. Great Space Coasters. Children's programming. What an interesting career that must be. Don't ever try to sneak up on a man who's never had sex, because he knows exactly where you are. Yeah, people, right. So, a lot of people I've had in my home over the years have been quite rude, um, which is typical. People get aggressive with me. It started with my own family, my dad, my mom. I've always had people, I was kind of in denial for many years, and then it's like, people are really aggressive with me. People are very prejudiced, they're very aggressive. Yeah, put it my measure. That's fine. I want this one. Oh, please. You gotta find me up. This is real fun. Long door. Anyway, with my heart. There's a reason why when my Uncle Vic talked to me years ago before he passed away, and he had a last opportunity to see me, there's a reason why he called me a faggot. And there's a reason why the only thing he asked me was whether or not I have health insurance. And there's a reason why he never asked me about, say, my writing. Which anyone who in this world knows me at all they have to ask me is, how's your writing going? That's it. That you're done. Just ask me how my writing's going, and I'll be like, hey, thanks. Thanks for asking. I don't know what to say always, but it was like, yeah, it's going all right probably. I've got stuff on the go. You know, how much do you want to know about the writing process? You know, it's like, basically, if you wanted to know my writing process, we'd have to be best friends because, you know, I would tell you about my life, you'd tell me about your life, and I would tell you how my life has been expressed through the process of writing. And you get sick of listening to it, unless, of course, you had a creative path of your own, and you could tell me about your healing path and your creative path. And you'd be like, and we could relate that way. And you could be, hey, man, you're quite admirable in your path of creativity and healing. And I would say, you know what? I think you're quite admirable too. And we'd make each other better, and we would actually feel good interacting. But I've never fucking had that. Is there no fucking creativity in people's lives? Very creative. Let's see. I didn't pay for them. With gas, I don't pay for them. And so there's a reason why he's not asking me anything about my life. There's a reason why that conversation doesn't go anywhere, because who wants to talk about their medical insurance while they're with their family? And they're with people they barely even know. I'm 35 years old. Like, what do you think I spend my time doing in the world? Playing with myself? And what I've noticed is that over my life, whatever I do, people don't give a fuck. They'd rather assume I do nothing. Can you imagine thinking that a human being like me doesn't do anything? How stupid do you have to be? That's a mental disorder, right? You think I can live in this world and not have something to say? You think I'm just waiting around to see if my mom starts lactating again? How stupid is that? How? What change has gone on in the human mind? You can't just relax with your family and they can go, hey, how's your healing? How's your creativity? How's your books? How's your this? I'll tell you why. It's because the family is the problem. The family is the problem. And they gave me a lot to write about. My family are not very nice people. They think they are, but they're not. What's being there? There's a reason. A reason the last time my older brother ever talked to my Uncle Vic, uh, they they had an argument over money and over unnecessary aggression. What do you know? What is it with these fucking people, eh? Why can't they figure out how to live properly? What's wrong with them? What's wrong with my family? Poverty? Sure. Are there really people out there who don't have these kinds of issues, or they can sit there and go, hey, you know, my family's great? In which case, you can fuck off. Um, it's so beautiful here. How could you not like this? Woo! I get it for free. These people in these houses up here spend millions of dollars to live along here, and they don't get this. Yeah, they don't get this. I just saw a bright purple fairy. They don't. I'm so safe right here. They don't get this. They're probably watching their fucking Fox News. You know, fuck you, fuck you. This is great. Ah, so yeah. What's the reason? Poverty, history. What do we mean by that? If I say poverty and history makes my family unhealthy, leads to violence, what do I mean by that? Pain? If we take history to be true, things in history are painful. How do humans respond to the pains of war? Good? Bad? Does it take a year to get over it, or what happens? Is it like in the movies that when someone dies but there's a good reason, like it's exciting or something, then you can kind of get over it. But if a character dies and you think there was no reason for that, you feel really sad, right? So if you think there's a reason that everyone in 2 world wars died, which by the way is about 1 billion people, over 1 billion people, over 1 billion people died in both world wars, and that's non-combatants. That doesn't even include the people in uniform with guns who can defend themselves. Think about that for a second. Just mull it over. That's more people than stones on this beach. You might say, well, it's easy to jaw on about 100 or 150 years of human brutality and make like that's all we do is kill people. You know? That's like looking at waste at a tuna factory and saying all the tuna they've thrown away in 150 years, and saying, oh, what a waste. But we need tuna. People tend to change their sense of proportion when they're talking about large-scale warfare. Some guy comes down the street and shoots your dog in the head, you could have 20 years of lawsuits. Someone shoots 1 billion people in the head for the sake of various difficult, complicated historical logistics and industrial scale warfare, and you're like, Maybe that's acceptable. You don't lose any sleep over it. Wasn't your dog, maybe. You didn't have a dog in that fight. You look at movies, there's a motif with action movies that a man's character, women too, but a man's character is defined by how he behaves in the heat of battle. So in an action movie, you see the kind of person that you love about this character at the climax of the film, when under pressure and the mounting levels of conflict and pressure, you see how they are under that pressure, like a diamond under that pressure, and they shine like a star. And there's all kinds of fogs of war and deception. They're like, bam, and it's like, and they deliver a line like, and that is what I call when a plan comes together. And his sidekick goes, yeah, man, way to go. Or, you're still ugly though. Because men abuse each other when they really love each other and form very strong homosexual bonds in the heat of combat. So that a man's character is defined in how he is under pressure. And I don't usually praise movies, but that's why I like the character of Yoda in Star Wars. Because although he's basically the most competent combatant, soldier, knight in the film, he does the least amount of fighting. I will praise them for that. You know, there's some truth in that. But maybe he should do more, because apparently there's a lot of fucking problems. I mean, Yoda's been asleep at the wheel. We got fucking illegitimate children turning to the dark side and fucking up the entire universe. I mean, Yoda could have snapped his neck when he was 5 years old. Darth Vader would have been no more. You know? Yoda basically looks like George Lucas's flaccid penis. Maybe one of his green testicles. Do not come. Run. Run. Like the dribble down your cock. This is a stick. I'm sorry, I'm rearranging. This is a stick. And what about this stick has grown from a tree? And what about that tree has grown from a single seed? And how many turnings of the stars and the sun and the moon and the sky and the clouds and the rain and the heat and the cold and the snow and the ice and the dark and the day to make this letter, to make the letter Y. Sitting there, someplace where if it weren't for me, nobody would have ever remarked upon it. And you'd say, just another branch laying around. What's going to happen to this branch over time? It's pretty bendy, so that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And these trees seem to love it. Look at all this mulch. I wish I hadn't looked up. Looking up is not what you're supposed to do when you sit here. It's green, so there's still green on here. There's a kind of copper color. It's got beautiful designs of kind of white bark, and then it comes out and it makes a statement, and then look, it's making another statement over here. It seemed like it really wanted to make that statement. That's a pattern. That's creation. You turn it like that, that's like the letter T. You see? That's like a stylized T. That's the first letter of my alphabet. The boat of the sun floating upon the boat of the moon. Or, if you will, one ocean floating on top of another ocean. Two oceans coming together. Creating a pressure. One ocean unto itself, one heaven unto itself, and yet another heaven. How can that be? And then we simply remark that from each heaven, another heaven is born. And every time something is born in its heaven, a new heaven is born. When we feel that there's heaven on the earth, a new heaven is born. And so to find peace, we have to find a new heaven from the beginning of the one heaven and the other heaven floating on top of each other and exerting pressure on each other. And maybe one heaven was the heaven of the future, and one heaven was the heaven in the past. Maybe one heaven was the heaven of death, and one heaven was the heaven of life. And that one is before and one is after. One is above or one is below. One is a man and one is a mother of man. One heaven agrees to give birth, and the other agrees to take birth and to be born to the other as the ultimate confession of love. That every heaven born from the coming together of these heavens has agreed to be born as though one heaven from another, as a total confession of love. So that every human being was a heaven that had confessed its love for another heaven by being born from a heaven. By this confession of love, a heaven itself being born, in each a new heaven being born, a new heaven from the old, a new heaven unto itself. And who, if a man rule the world, could rule the world, but that he was a heaven unto himself and knew something about the heaven of the earth, and that you had to be born to live there. You had to be born, each new heaven unto itself had to be born. To be born again is to be born a communication of heaven, a communication of the confession of love, a communication of the original, a communication of the beginning, a communication from the beginning. And so that each sound is born, sounds its heaven from the beginning. From the beginning. And what, but that this day is one way, and that day was another way. And we can confess to days that they were filled with rain and cold and wind, and we drew our coats closer about our neck and drifted through the somnolent, if turbulent vapors of some winter or summer or spring. Now, with the dappling sunlight, it is as though a new heaven entirely. Yet, we can still see that other heaven that loves us. That day loves us. That mist loves us. It is part of the tapestry of today and tomorrow. And how can you deny the heritage of this moment or the progenitive power of its origins, its existence, its nature, its creativity, its continuation, its confession of love? Then if we ask, what is the purpose of life, or what is love? We say, what has stopped the confession of love upon our lips, that it is everywhere confessed? I should be a minister. I should have a flock. They should call me the shepherd boy. And they shall bring me meats and fruits, and sometimes their daughters, whose luscious breasts would flow out of their cardigans. And they would say, my nipples are cherry red. Have a nice day, Mr. Minister. And I would go back to the rectory and play with myself. And the next week I would come again. See, and I would say, today's sermon, sermon. Where's that word mon coming from? Sermon. It's like serum, like serum. It's a poison. Today's ode, today's confession of love begins with something a beautiful young lady said to me last week after the sermon. The confession of love. She made particular reference to the cherry red nature of her nipples. And you know who you are, and your father knows who you are. And I was proud, it was not wroth with your confession of cherry red beauty, even as it festoons thy beautiful bosom, which as I look over the congregation I can see even now rising very, very in an excited fashion. Yes, today's confession of love is going to be called the cherry blossom. There was a tree in a garden, and its roots had grown strong and deep and wide. They had thrust their tendrils into the dark bosom of the earth. And upward thrusting its trunk may be, the heavens mercifully rained down upon that tree, and such wonderful pink cherry blossoms would emerge 1 week of the year. And I would lay there and they would fall on top of me, and sometimes they would land on my lips, and the cherry blossom would just dangle there upon my lips. And then I wrote a poem called The Cherry Blossom, because also in the clouds I saw a giant vagina and a penis going into it like Moby Dick. And then there was a UFO, and they had a lot of licorice that they wanted me to eat as well. Candy was coming out of the back of a truck and falling down onto the place beneath. And it was sweet. And I did suckle upon that cherry blossom. I did take in the great rondure of the heavens into my mouth, and I enjoyed this sacrament, as I would enjoy the aforementioned cherry-colored nipple if I was offered that opportunity. Now, I'm going to cut this confession short. Going to have to snip that off right there. I'm going to have to retire to the rectory. Good day to you all. Oh yes, the confession plate. I want you to put all your dirty little secrets in there this week, okay? And put your initials. I'll know who you are. And he's scouring through them, and it's like, I like it when the minister talks about my breasts. Ooh, I'll put that one to one side. Oh, they've enclosed a drawing. Ooh, it looks like a rabbit eating a carrot. I'll put that on the refrigerator. Yeah. And so I think my church would grow. My congregation would swell. There'd be a swollen tide of new conversions. Breasts are good, but they're complicated. Because they're attached to women. Can you get breasts without women? I just want the breast by itself. You know? A bucket of breasts. I want the breast in its natural state. The thing is, I think I'd be a Bo Diddley. I think I could really fall in love with a woman. You know, I have a sensitive side. You know, not just because women are fuckable and all that stuff. It's just mostly because they're lovable. If you get a nice one, you know. I've had enough violence in my life. You see, it's all about boundaries. You may think me a misogynist, but I give myself the therapeutic permission, as if a doctor wrote me a note saying, "You're allowed to hate whoever you want," because it increases my boundaries. How many people there, men or women in the world, raise your hands, have let shit into your life because you embarrassingly enough needed to work on boundaries that came easy to other people, especially about the opposite sex. You let people in, or people just treat you a certain way, and you're in a pattern, and it says something about your life. It says you're a douche. Right? And once you can get over your own doucheness, I'm just like, I have to hate women because